Hello everyone and welcome back. Let's talk about Interview with the Vampire. One of the most impactful scenes of the entire series in what could be considered the most impactful episode of the entire series was Claudia's death on stage in the Théâtre des Vampires. It wasn't a death that we didn't know was coming in relation to what happens in the book and the 1994 Neil Jordan on-screen adaptation, but what was a total yet compelling surprise was watching Claudia sing her signature song from My Baby Loves Windows during her final moments as she turns to ash. It was a really powerful moment as she faced the crowd head on, showing no signs of what was clearly blinding agony as she wasted away right before the viewing audience. So in today's video I'm going to explain why Claudia gave the ultimate up yours to everyone before she bowed out in the way she did. Let's take a look. Claudia was probably my favourite character throughout the series, and that was down to her being very headstrong, never taking any crap and showing no signs of compassion when she was wronged. Now, she's made to be a 14-year-old in the show, but in reality was only 5 years of age in the book. Anyway, we'll refer to the TV series version of Claudia as this is who the video is actually based on. We all know Claudia was made far too young, even as a 14-year-old. She had not reached the levels of adult maturity, which means it was always going to be a challenge for her to battle the Dark Gift's blessing of immortality, but she did, and she held herself very well. She actually thrived in the beginning, showing the fearless and dangerous vampire she was. She was very eager to find more of her own kind in order for her to feel more accepted rather than feeling like a burden to Louie, preventing him from living his own life as the vampire he wanted to be. Except Louie doesn't really know who he is, but that's another story. She knew Louie never really viewed her as his companion, but more so a daughter or even an individual that he had to care for, as she was too weak to care for herself. Louie more so couldn't leave her rather than wanting to leave her. She was never his equal. So when they finally come across the vampire coven of the Théâtre des Vampires, Claudia finally felt like she was part of a family. She was warmly embraced, taken under the coven's wing as a whole, with multiple members offering her advice, and got to hunt as a killer in a pack, as we seen in her thorough enjoyment of hunting in the Parisian outskirts with the rest of the coven. She openly states how happy she is in that very moment, and Louie is genuinely happy himself to see her smile for the first time in a very long time. She goes through the apprentice phase of joining the coven and even gets her own show, My Baby Loves Windows, which becomes a massive hit, with the crowd regularly singing along with her. That was until Armand looked upon her as what she truly was, a burden to Louie and a massive hindrance in him fully securing Louie for himself. So he begins to make Claudia's life reflect how she genuinely feels on the inside, forcing her to project her biggest fears out into the open and live them every single day. Now, I explained this in more detail in my previous video to this one about Armand, but Louie witnesses this and he does nothing because he says Claudia asked for this, alongside some manipulation on Armand's path to set Louie in the right direction. So this genuinely angers Claudia because it's a clear sign of repetition in her life as a whole. Not only is she living her worst personal nightmare, but now she's reliving another Louie and Lestat, but this time Armand is the new Lestat. She went through years of watching Louie choose Lestat time and time again, not consulting Claudia on anything or considering her feelings. She was always second. Her thoughts and opinions always came second to whatever was happening with Louie and Lestat. Even after they left, Claudia is still furious at Louie for not finishing Lestat off, for allowing his feelings for him to dictate the choices they made, and even allowing for Lestat to treat her the way he did. While Louie defended him, Then it all happens over again, with Armand playing more of a game than the upfront confrontational individual Lestat was. She asks Louie why is it never her? Why can't he ever choose her just once? Louie thinks Armand's cruelty is a lesson for Claudia, to teach her more humility about what she feels she's entitled to, something he deeply regrets in present day as he tells his story to Daniel. Louie has this fragile vampire, of whom he insisted be turned, crying out to be wanted and loved by him, but he puts his own romantic feelings ahead of hers every single time, only held to her, but a guilty feels over her creation. Then Claudia meets Meline, and everything changes for her. She finally meets someone who understands the pain of blatant isolation, Meline falling in love with a Nazi officer, and therefore being labelled a Hitler sympathiser, and Claudia feeling like she'll never be important enough for Louie to just choose her. They begin a very beautiful relationship, understand each other's pain, and begin healing each other. Meline is drawn to Claudia, and Claudia in return. Claudia really sees the depth of Madeline's commitment when she becomes a vampire in order to be her eternal companion. For once, Claudia was chosen first, chosen for the person she is alone, and believes she is finally being seen. However, she will always hold the doubt of being enough for Meline, but this is a massive step and something Claudia really deserves, and she tried to fill the emptiness in her for so long. Which brings us to the trial, and it's here that everything I've just spoken about all links together to give us the understanding we need for Claudia's final actions before her death. Claudia was not going down without a fight. She was going to contest everything that was thrown at her, but she didn't foresee the vampire judges fogging her mind any time she tried to speak. She still broke through it at times, however. She also knew she was going to die, but it wasn't clear how she was truly going to deal with it, until the sentencing that was. It was only when Meline, who had a choice to live and join the coven as she had no involvement in the attempted murder of Lestat, chose to refuse the coven's offer and die with Claudia, that Claudia finally realised someone had truly, finally, picked her first. Meline chose to die with her, to give up her eternal life, and that is when Claudia accepted her fate. She realised that no mortal life for Meline was worth it unless Claudia herself was by her side, and this really gives Claudia that extra strength that she needed. It was time to go out on her terms. After the sentencing, Claudia rises to her feet and addresses everyone she wanted to address. She tells the crowd that if there's an afterlife, then she's gonna come back and kill them all for being stupid enough to believe that this was all an act, not just now, but the entire time. Her up yours to the Théâtre des Vampires and to Armand was singing her signature song that she was forced to do time and time again as she died in agony. She refused to show them her pain, refused to show defeat. She sang as she turned to ash, never allowing them to see her break. She may be dying, but she will go out the way that Claudia wants to go out. Then, in her final few seconds, her final few moments, she turns to Lestat and lets out her cry, finally, in order to let it hit home with her maker, ensuring she was the last thing he seen before she died. And that worked. It had such an impact on Lestat that he was never able to get her death out of his mind, something he confides in with Louie over 70 years later. Her death reflected who she was as a person the entire time. It was a pure example of her remaining true to herself, even when it came down to her final moments. Claudia would always be Claudia. That's all for today, guys. Make sure to check out the next video coming in a couple of days. Chat soon.